Hey, I know the feeling standing in the aisle of a tech store or scrolling through endless pages, trying to figure out if that $1,200 drone is really worth it for your weekend adventures or your budding YouTube channel. You don't want to drop cash on a gadget that ends up gathering dust because it's either too complicated, doesn't give the footage you need, or just falls short when the wind picks up. And if you're like most people, you'd rather see a real-world impression than a wall of specs before you decide. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The DJI Mini 5 Pro Fly More combo is one of those packages that tries to answer every what if you have. It comes with 2 controllers, 3 batteries, a 128GB micro SD card, and a pilot kit that promises you're ready to launch straight out of the box. That's a big part of its appeal. No need to hunt down extra accessories later, which is a common pitfall for first-time drone owners who end up buying a spare battery here, a better propeller there, and suddenly their budget balloons. The question is whether all those extras actually translate into smoother days in the field, or if they're just a nice have that you'll never use. Let's start with the everyday scenario most of us care about. Pulling out the drone on a weekend hike, setting it up on a rocky ledge, and trying to capture that sweeping valley shot without spending an hour wrestling with the controls. The Mini 5 Pro's folding design is genuinely pocket-friendly. It's about the size of a water bottle, and the hinge mechanism feels solid enough that you don't worry about it wobbling when you fold it back into your backpack. For me, that translates to a quick pack-up after a day of trail walking, then a few minutes of unfolding, pairing the controller, and you're ready to launch. The dual-controller setup is a bit of a curveball. The original Mini 5 shipped with a single controller, but DJI added a second one in this combo, mainly for people who want to hand off control to a second pilot or keep a spare in case the first one glitches. In practice, most users will stick with the primary controller, but having that backup can be a lifesaver on a windy day when you need to switch hands fast. Now, about the footage. The 1-inch CMOS sensor is the headline feature, promising 50MP stills and 4K video with 10-bit D-Log color. In real use, that sensor does give you noticeably richer textures compared to the previous Mini models. I tried it in a late afternoon park with the sun filtering through trees, and the colors retained depth without looking oversaturated. The 10-bit profile is especially useful if you're planning to do color grading in post, because it preserves more detail in the shadows and highlights. For a casual vlogger who just wants a pretty clip to drop on Instagram, the extra color data might feel like overkill, but for anyone serious about a small-scale cinematic look, it's a genuine advantage. Obstacle avoidance is where the Mini 5 Pro tries to stand out in the sub-250-gram class. It has omnidirectional sensors that work at night as well as during daylight, which means you can fly in low-light conditions without fearing a sudden collision with a branch or a street lamp. In a test flight around my apartment complex at dusk, the drone automatically slowed when it detected a fence pole that was barely visible in the fading light. The system isn't perfect. It won't replace a human eye when you're navigating tight corridors, but it does add a layer of confidence that many entry-level pilots lack. If you're a beginner who's nervous about crashing, this safety net can be the difference between a quick quit and a longer learning curve. ActiveTrack 360 is another smart tech feature that gets a lot of buzz. The drone can lock onto a moving subject, keep it centered, and even rotate the camera to stay on the action as you fly around. I used it to film a friend biking down a hill, and the tracking held up surprisingly well, even when the rider veered off the path and the drone had to swing around a tree. The only hiccup was that the algorithm sometimes hesitated when the subject moved directly behind an obstacle, briefly losing lock. That's something to keep in mind if you need rock-solid tracking for fast-moving sports. A handheld gimbal might still be more reliable, but for most travel vlogs, it's a solid time saver. Battery life is always the elephant in the room for drones, and the Mini 5 Pro claims about 36 minutes per charge. In practice, that number is optimistic for aggressive flying with the camera set to high-resolution video, but if you stick to smoother, slower panning shots, you'll see close to that figure. The Fly More combo includes 3 batteries, which essentially triples your flight window before you have to head back for a recharge. For people who want to spend a whole afternoon shooting without swapping batteries every 10-15 minutes, that's a tangible benefit.